Hey guys, so we're back and now we're gonna start going through this really exciting labs, which is around .NET deobfuscation, which is actually pretty cool. I really love it when I was preparing it. So the first thing I really wanna make sure you guys understand is reflection. As we explained in our Packers and Obfuscators class, a reflection is going to allow normal programs or malware to load an assembly, which can be an executable, can be a DLL, it can be those kind of assemblies. So it's going to allow through reflection to load those assemblies in memory, and then from there get the class, get the methods, get the arguments, and execute them. If you think about that, the malware is going to run, it's not going to do anything, and suddenly it's going to extract a DLL from the resources, it's going to decrypt it, load it in memory, and execute one method, and I don't know, probably inject into a process, for example. So this is pretty convenient for malware creators, and the reason we need to understand that is because once we understand how reflection works, then we can try to find those indicators while doing the deobfuscation, okay? Which is actually the most common way for malware in .NET to reach the second stage payload. Okay, so I prepare one example for reflection. So first of all, I have here a DLL, which is just this namespace. It is just one class, has one method which is called salute, receives one argument, and basically what it does is just say, hey, hello from DLL with the argument received, right? So this is the DLL which we're gonna load with another program, and then that program is gonna eventually, through reflection, calls this salute method, which is exactly what the malware does, okay? So then let me open the solution that is gonna load it. I call it assembly loader. Okay, and then just quickly here, this is the command line arguments. Okay, so we have first of all the path of the DLL to load, then the class name we want to load, then the method, and finally the argument. Okay, so then we have here, the first important instruction is the assembly.load file. That means, guys, when you are doing .NET analysis, the obfuscating, you need to start looking for assembly.load file, which is gonna basically load from disk in memory that DLL. Once we load it, then we go and call get type. Get type is gonna get the class of that specific, the class that you wanna get. In this case, we're passing the load me class 1. But as you remember, we can also say get types. With get types, you're gonna get the list of all the classes. Okay, so then we get the class, we save it in the type. Then with that type, we create an instance, of that class and store it in this object. Then in argument 0, in this array argus, we just store the argument, which is hack defender here. And finally, this type, which is the class, we call the invoke member, where we pass as a first argument the method to be called. Here's some normal arguments for the invoke member, which we don't care, to be honest, at this point. And then we have the object, the object which is the instance created of that class, and finally the argument. Okay, guys? And then we can just, rebuild this guy. Okay, it is rebuilt. So I have ready here the path, okay, where this guy is located. So we pass all the arguments, we click enter, and you can see that now the DLL responded with hello from DLL and with the argument that we passed. And this means we were able to successfully load the DLL in memory and execute one of these methods. Obviously, we can change this to whatever you want, just so that you can see it's actually loading in memory and sending to the DLL and get response at runtime, right? Okay, so this is the way reflection works in C#, and there are many other implementations, guys, but this is one of the common ones. Now, let's see the same thing, but in PowerShell. PowerShell is another way for us that we can do exactly the same reflection, right? So for PowerShell, let me go to the directory, which is here. Then I think it's labs.net. Oh, cd labs.net. Okay, so we go to 0. And then we have here, guys, our script. Okay, so this script is a little bit different because of PowerShell syntax, but it's exactly the same idea. So we get here the path of the DLL, storing the malware variable. Then we call read all bytes of that assembly. We save it in malbytes. And then we do load, in this case, load those malbytes. So we load it in memory. And then we get that object and we get the modules. The modules, in this case 0, which basically means we get the class. Okay. Once we get the class, we can call the resolve method. If you remember in our Windows binaries class, we talk about the metadata tables, and the metadata table ID 06 is for methods. And then we have here 061, which basically means the method number 1. If we have 2 or 3 methods, we just change this to method number 2, method number 3. But this is the way, just by using the metadata ID, where we can get the method of our class. We save it in salute. And finally, we call the invoke, which is gonna pass hackdevrocks, and it's gonna run it. So let's see if that works. So we just get into PowerShell prompt, okay, and then we run this guy. And you see that it works exactly as we said before. The DLL prints hello from DLL. We were able to load it in memory and execute it through reflection, and then it just prints out our argument. I have it here also, so we can change this to something else as usual, so that you guys can see that. You can see that is running this version, okay? And then we execute it again. Okay, guys, so this is very important. So now that we see this kind of a technique for reflection, that's going to be very useful for us in the next labs, because now we're going to be able to start looking for, hey, is there any load, assembly.load? Is there any invoke member? Is there any create instance? So those indicators is going to be good for us to say, hey, looks like the malware here is trying to load something in memory. Okay, so let's move on.